I noticed I haven't done any updates or devlog or anything for more than 2 months now. So I decided to just jump into it, just as unplanned and unplanned as usual. And I'm not very good at structuring things. So I just jump into it. It's better that way. Might become a mess, but that's the way it is, as usual. So what has happened in 2 months? For one, I've been a bit busy, so I haven't spent all the 2 months on the toolkit at all, just parts of it. But still, in let's say the last month or so, I have rewritten or actually reorganized or reformatted, restructured, what do they call it? They call it anyway. The entire toolkit from scratch. I started with an empty directories and just copied in bit by bit, while critically looking at each bit and fixing all the hacks, all decisions that didn't turn out to be too perfect at all. After all these shortcuts and maybe I shouldn't call them hacks either, but spaghetti code I had to do because the lowest level wasn't perfect. So I tried to fix as much as possible of that while building it up more and more and focused very much on the things I felt I had some problems with or issues with at the same time, like global initialization stuff, debugging, logging, unit testing, and something I call analytics, which isn't really analytics, it's just looking how things work internally, so I can see if locked-free queues are working properly and stuff. I have been careful about that low-level stuff to be sure that they actually work as intended, and I could not trust them properly, but trust them enough to build more things on top of that. And of course get rid of all this old stuff I didn't want anymore. And then I of course cleaned up things, finally optimized things and all that kind of stuff at the same time, trying to be sure instead of just, what should I call it, hysterical coding in frenzy. I decided to go step by step, a little bit careful. And that has been changed. And in the GUI part, I had to split up the windowing system a little bit more, so not the window, the painting. I split up the painter and the renderer, separated them completely, so I can easily make new renderers or new painters. Render is stuff like OpenGL, Wayland, X11, all these lower level things that makes painting possible. And then I have this painter on top of it, or by the side of it, which do the actual painting, and it could paint to different, use different renderers and paint to different surfaces. So I have the Nano VG painter, which I use for the GPU stuff. There's Cairo, there's pure X11 GDI again, and some more. But to split them up, they made it much easier to add new versions of all of this. For example, when I needed or wanted to test Wayland, I needed a GLES renderer, so I just made a GLES renderer, and then bang, it just fit into the rest of the code very easily, and then I could just make this Wayland window system on top of this GLES renderer and use non-VG painter to paint. So that's these three classes that GUI consists of now. It's a window, it's a renderer, and it's a painter. Additionally, I have a surface and a bitmap, but that is other things. So that was a GUI. That's the main difference from the old stuff. There's a bunch of stuff going on. Like earlier, which I have cleaned up, like the widget system is much more better now. And also much less spaghetti. And the plugin part is I split out the editor and the processor part now instead of all of those parts being part of the plugin itself, it's now separate. Call it objects or call responsibilities or classes or files. I just split it out so I can concentrate on that part completely. So in the editor, I have 2 editor types at the moment, actually 3. I have no editor, which doesn't really count because it's an empty editor, it doesn't do anything, but if I use that editor, all of the GUI stuff is removed. What is the way is this modified? I also have this embedded editor, which is the usual traditional editor with a where is it? Where's the window? Okay, here's the window, which I have an internal window and controls it directly, like an embedded. And also have a remote editor, which is meant more for like the clap has something like floating windows, floating GUI. And it could be, for example, if you have a GUI stuff in a different process, it's in even a different machine, or networks thing. It could be web view. So we have this remote editor is meant to kind of more send messages to other parts instead of actually doing Windows stuff. But I haven't done anything because I haven't, as you can see, everything is empty here. Then there's the editor, so this is split up a little bit more, and then you have this processor, which takes care of, actually it's processing, that's the name, because it's given by the name. It processes audio and events, and the interleaving or the splitting of this, all of this. So I have a bunch of different processors too. I like the usual, I have this block processor, which is very simple. All events process, then process all audio, like an old school VC2, and probably like Juice is doing it, because there is no sample accuracy at automation in Juice or in VC2 and the old stuff. Also, if you want to handle the timings yourself, for example, in the audio. I also have interleave processor, which use sample accurate splitting of the audio buffer, so splits the buffer exactly where the events are, and process them at the correct time. Then process a slice of audio, then new events and audio in varied sizes to fill out the block. And finally, we have the quantized processor, which splits the audio in equal size chunks, like, and then process events in between, which means more and more for like some optimized stuff that can have hard-coded sizes and stuff. And finally, I have also this voice processor and threaded processor, which I'm going into later. These are the most important or visible changes. So that was the main of the big reasoning why I had to rebuild everything, and now everything is kind of up to scratch again. I focus on Linux, clap, GPU editor at the moment. So I can compile for Windows actually, but not the GUI part at the moment. The wrappers are, there's almost nothing I need to change in it. I can kind of, after the plugin part is guaranteed finished or updated, I can just smack it on top and it should just work. GUI part, all the widgets, they are more or less the same, except a few function signatures and that kind of stuff, so I have to edit a little bit here and there, but not very little actually. So actually the hard part, or the things that I have had to debug and test and be careful about, is kind of done now. It's so I can now just piling things on top. There's 2 things I have to focus on to be very sure that this not turn into spaghetti code, and that is what I call buffering. I have something called a buffered window, which is everything is commented out in the moment, which means I can render, or I will render to a backup buffer instead, and keep that one updated all the time with this GUI stuff and everything. And when the OS wants me to draw in the window, I just copy stuff to the window. There's a few optimization things I can do with that, so to make it much faster and much more like an old school retain mode GUI, which I like. I don't like this immediate mode where you have to redraw the GUI, entire GUI every time something changes, which is what is happening at the moment. So the buffering has to be properly done, so there's no. And what was next? There was one more thing, but I actually don't remember it at the moment. Yeah, there's more like functionality actually. In widgets, I want to have something like a cached, or how is this pronounced? Cached widget, or a buffered widget. So I can have a widget that has an advanced drawing, and then you could draw. I can just kind of snapshot of it. And if it doesn't change, we could use the snapshot instead to draw to the screen all the time, unless something changed and you have to redraw it, and then use the new. For example, something that changes seldom. For example, the background, the entire background of the plugin, for example, you could draw all the text, all the logos, all the graphic stuff into a buff, and then just cache this one or save it. And every time you need to draw the background, you just copy it. So that one is not done at the moment. Let me see here. I'm working on a dual slider thing, so I can have ranges. Tween widget should be interesting. That's, you could, when clicking or something happening, you could start a chain of tweens, I call it. I'm not sure if tween is the best name, or if I just should call it animation. The point is that you could define a chain. A tween is kind of a movement or colors or values or whatever interpolated from one position to another, and then you could change the easing curves between these. You could have, or you could have things that go boing boing boing, like bouncing or slowly speeding up or slowing down during this in the tweening, and you can have a chain of this. So if you, for example, click a button, you could start a tween that zooms the button a little bit up and increase the colors, for example, so it, and then when you hover away from it, you could just fade back instead of all these immediate happenings. And the same thing with if you open a group box, instead of it being open that like instant being a bigger size, it would be much better if you saw it grow to the right position. So same thing with the things that we are snapping away, for example sidebars. You see what's happening to them instead of them being gone all of a sudden. So I really want this tweening. Most of the system for it is in place already. All the widgets that have some tweening stuff is getting called back from some timers and stuff. There's timers going on already, but I don't do the actual property changing and all that kind of, and realigning and all that kind of stuff. What else is interesting? Maybe it's not so interesting anyway. I can, for example, like you see here, I can compile as an exe format, which means standalone executable, which is actually a internal host, which loads the already present internal plugin and instantiates it in the same way as if it should be a normal loadable plugin. So it's actually the almost fully clap host already. I will massage this and put it inside a separate file instead. So we have the beginning of hosting ready. Then when everything, in a while, maybe quite soon, I will start to pile up all this from this backup. I have this old stuff, like all the plugins, of course, and the source is all the widget stuff and all the formats and stuff. You could kind of copy it back, and things will go very quickly as soon as the foundation is assumed to be finished. There is some interesting stuff happening in the Mac side. I don't code Mac myself, but there's something happening. I can't say much at the moment, but maybe there could be Mac things going on. What is there anything I want? I have experimented a little bit with ARA, A-R-A, ARA stuff, but just touching the tip of the iceberg only actually. But that's an interesting area to look at. I've looked at the Reaper extensions, so I can already get, when the clap plugin is running under the Reaper, I can get the Reaper object and start doing the extension things. But I haven't tested it much. What else? Well, let me just run it and see. So this is actually doesn't look much as usual. It looks like just a primitive amateurish crap. But this is what I'm using to when I'm developing the plugin, parameter slash widget slash host interaction. You don't see much here. For example, you can resize it, of course, as you can see. You don't see it here, but all this event stuff going on in the background to notify both the host and the audio processing part, and both ways. So if you automate a parameter, okay, let me compile for as a plugin too. In that case, I want it called clap extension, and I want a clap format. Later, I can actually clap EC2, EC3, for example. Here, I only care about clap. Which means we now have a clap player, and we can start this in, let me start my big output in Bitwig. I guess we do this better. And in our bin directory, which is the bin directory here, it's the same one. We let's look into it in location bin, and here's my plugin. You see my plugin, it's because of my naming here. So dragging this in, and here's the same thing, more or less the same thing as you can see here. There's not much info. And what I'm focusing on it is the interaction, so that they feel good, nicely and so on, and also that the modulation is working properly. For example, I want to modulate this parameter 1, for example, a little bit, and I want this, and of course it should be safe enough so I can resize and still being drawn. The modulation, I can be intense, and I can drag a lot. I can modulate. Control D, let's modulate another one. Let's modulate parameter 5, and let's modulate parameter 3. Let's have a bunch of them, just so that we have something going. And also, I had problems earlier if I hysterically open and close the window, because all the setup functionality wasn't getting up and running properly when I started trying to animate those modulations here while the plugin editor was halfway open and stuff. So this is a nice way to test, hammer it on and see if the things still work. And there's still one issue with the GUI. Actually, if I resize it, you see I don't have it set up to proportional at the moment. I don't care. If I close it and open it again, now it works. Okay, so then I obviously fixed that. Obviously, earlier it wasn't, the GUI wasn't scaled properly. So I can resize it really small, and I can close it, and then I open it. The window was the right size, but the GUI was scaled to the normal size. So the sliders went too big, and then these was scaled up and down, so it was completely messy. Okay, so that one works now. From now on, and also the audio part is working at the moment, but you don't hear anything, of course, because it doesn't do much except that it's a typical gain plugin. It modifies the volume only. And of course, you can have multiple. Of course, because of this global, you can have multiple versions of them plugins, of course. And you can open So we don't have any globals, of course. That's being very careful about that part. What else? Base. There's this toolkit part of it is cleaned up a little bit so that the basic the main include file that sets everything else in motion just looks like this now. And this one is a little bit ugly one. It's as you can say, global variables. That sounds not very good, and it actually has one global variable inside of a plugin, which is dynamic library or shared object, which is not recommended very much, but think of it more like a singleton-ish thing. As usual, I could still code in a very old school hackerish way. I code, as you can see in all my classes, I have the implementations there, and then inside I don't use the C/header source separation much. But that's just a coding style, so it doesn't really matter. I've tried to do things as flexible as possible while still keeping it understandable and not too verbose. I don't have to write 30 lines just to decide the name of a parameter or something. But since I want the flexibility, I don't want to reduce flexibility if I can avoid it, because every plugin is a bit different. Sometimes you want to do this one thing, sometimes you want to do it another way, and I don't want to hard code things too much. So there's a few things that is a bit, for example, parameters. You have to create a parameter, you set some properties in the parameter, you append the parameter to the plugin itself, and then later on when you set to the editor, you have to create a widget, set some parameter on the widget, which is separate from the parameter. That's two different things. You have to add the widget to the GUI, to the root widget here, which is the background, and then you have to connect the widgets and parameters. So there's a bit of writing, and you can there is simplification functions to do a lot of this in one go, one line only, but then you can't do all this setting and this optional stuff. So it depends on what you want. This could be nice to have in a separate editor application actually, so you could drag and drop knob sliders and all that kind of stuff and just save as a header file, and then you get all this code dumped out from it. That would be nice. So this file here is a complete plugin actually. The only thing it does not do is processing actually. If you see a processor, it doesn't do anything except, let me see, we can make it print out the variables instead. So that's the only thing it's doing at the moment, is a processor just print the variables when they change compile as a plugin. And also they happen just as well, you can compile as an executable here. In that case, you see down here, if I change the value, why doesn't it change the value? Oh, I don't process. Okay, I know, because I have to compile as a plugin, because I don't do any processing in the standalone at the moment. This is my debug output, then bitwig. Let's see, power save. And now, we already found the plugin. Let us see where we have it. Where it is, there. And you see that already it's forgot the events, because it sets up this default one, and it's changed as this event 4 is, as you can see. Interesting, maybe, see the black line here, and below, on the bottom here, and the orange line is all of a sudden they split up and part and then combine. This is my, because I'm working on this snapping functionality here. As you can see, it snaps to 0.5, boom, there, and how to kind of, what should I call it, implement it. And also a control to go slowly, so it kind of hurries towards the 0.5 and reluctantly goes away from it. Also have this quantized. As you can see, the yellow bar is the call it official or the public value of the widget or the parameter. So you see jump to see the number here too. But if you press shift, you could go slowly between them. So for example, it could be seminotes, semitones in a synth, for example, and then you could half a semitone extra. And there's a few different variations of them I use for testing the parameter interaction and that kind of stuff. So it goes both ways, so it's sure that everything works. Also the modulation and stuff and all that kind of stuff. So it looks like almost nothing has happened, but most of the thing has been in the background, and from now on everything will be, what should I say, so much better. Well, that's the hope, of course. Now I'm going to just pile things on top of this when and if I need them, and if other people come around and tell me they would like this or that, I will focus on it. But in a very short time it will be back to where it was in version 1 of the toolkit, and then we can start going the next steps and actually do the plugins again, back to the plugins again. But I want to be really sure to not be too quick about this, so that to avoid spaghetti and hacks and all that kind of crap. So it will become better and better. If you want to look at it, you can go to the GitHub repository, of course, and download everything. I'd say it's very easy to install. You don't have to install it, actually, just unzip it. Very easy to set up and configure. You don't have to do anything. You just have to tell the GCC where you unzipped it. Kind of. That's almost only thing you have to do. It is very easy to get a plugin up and running. You could actually do it in 10-20 lines only, with no knowledge about how things works internally. And it is very easy to expand up, build on top of it, and make it more and more a really advanced plugin that uses almost all the advanced clap features, like thread pool, polyphonic modulation, all that kind of stuff. That is automatically included. So I'm starting to feel really good about all this, even though it may look a bit chaotic on the outside, but the things are really starting to shape up now. So let's say this. Yeah, okay, more info next time. Let's say this was a very improvised and impulsive thing, but now you know. And the next one will be better, as always. See you around.